So this is a slightly slower variation of funky vinyasa, and gives you a chance to go through the poses before speeding it up a little bit. So it's always safer to do the poses slowly, and then once you kind of get them in your head and you know what you're doing and all the cues just come automatically, then it's easier to speed them up and just pretty much do 1 breath or 2 breaths per pose. So in this pose, in this sequence, I'm doing a pose I just call the crisscross, which is this one. So when you've got your foot in front of the other one, try imagining that you're squeezing your feet together. You don't want your bum sticking out, so always bring your tailbone down. Now in this one I'm saying sink in a little bit because we're doing a side stretch, and that feels really nice. You can do that as a standalone stretch as well. Now in here I'm also saying maybe bring your hand to the floor, but don't bring your hand to the floor if it doesn't feel nice for your back. It's not going to be okay for everybody. We're also doing a very deep lunge in this vinyasa. Now when you do a deep lunge, the toes of your front foot need to be in front of your knee. You don't want to be doing something like this. And it's also important that you're pushing your weight into your back foot, because a lunge isn't about being here, it's about being back there. All right, so we're playing around with this a little bit so that when we drop the knee to the floor, it feels a little bit more comfortable, okay? But if it doesn't feel comfortable to lift your arm off the floor, don't do it, okay? That's the important thing. I'm also doing a pose that looks like this. Don't do that one if it doesn't feel comfortable. And this next pose, I always call it the fancy beach pose because it always reminds me of what somebody might do on the beach if they're wearing a nice brand new bikini. You'll see why. So to come into that, you have to pretty much pivot, and can you see how my toes are tracking with my knee? Okay, so I'm sitting on the outside of my hip, and it looks a bit like that. Hence, that's why it's called the fancy beach pose. But that's not for everybody either. Okay. And we've got some explanations as to how to do the half moon poses safely. Alright, so we'll go through, we'll slow it down, and once you've got it in your head, you can speed it up and it becomes a little bit more like a movement-based meditation. So start with your big toes touching, heels slightly apart, bring your tailbone down, bring your fingers to touch, elbows to the ceiling, armpits to the floor, bring your chin in. Okay, so always ribs in. Stand out through the crown of your head and not too much tension in your tummy. When you're ready, just feel as if you're pushing the air away with your hands. Scoop the arms forward, so lift your collarbones, look up if you can, and then bring the backs of your hands together and bring your fingers to the ceiling. Bring your fingers to the floor and bend the knees as much as you need to. So from here, we're going to come into a half moon pose. The easiest version, and I'm going to balance on my right foot first, is to bring the left heel to the bottom. And then you can make it harder by taking your left leg out behind you, harder by bringing your left hand to your left hip, and you can do the full pose by turning your belly button to the left side and bringing your left arm up. So to get my balance, I'm always gripping the mat with my toes, and I've got a little tiny bend in my right knee, it's not locked out. So the second variation, pretty hard, you roll your left shoulder in, internal rotation from the ball in the socket, and wrap the left arm around. Look at the floor for this one because it's harder. I'm just going to bend the right knee a little bit more, touch my earlobe with the right fingertips. It's pretty tricky. Take your left hand back, roll the left thigh in. Once your buttocks are level, left leg all the way to the back of the mat. This is a deep lunge, okay? So I'm going to push into the ball of the back foot, scoop my left buttock forward, and then engage this left glute, which means it's a bit soft in this position, so I'm going to tense it a little bit and then sink down. But I want to imagine I'm trying to stop myself doing the splits. And in yoga, most asymmetric or nearly all asymmetric yoga poses, one thigh rolls in, one rolls out. So it's almost like I'm squeezing water out of a cloth. I want to imagine I'm rolling my front thigh to the opposite side and my back thigh is rolling in to the opposite side, kind of like scissors. And then before I come down, I'm going to imagine that I'm shortening the mat. So I'm going to squeeze my feet together and then drop the back knee to the floor. And that preps us all for the lunge, which feels a bit easier. So if you can, you press the top of the back foot into the floor, squeeze it forward, bring your tailbone down, sweep the left arm all the way forward and take it over to the right side. So I'm aiming to touch my left ear with the left armpit, but somewhere like that is fine. Relax. This is harder. Be on the little toe side of your right foot, ribs are in, and you're working on bringing your chest towards the floor. And then come up, be on the ball of your back foot. This is that fancy beach pose. Just sink into the left hand on the left side, lift the front of the right foot, pivot, and work on turning your belly to the right side and sitting on the outside of your left hip. Push the left shoulder down, rest the right hand on the left thigh, and then you can look glamorously over your left shoulder and pretend you're on the beach. And then come back up. Be on the ball of the back foot, lift the back leg. And I just bring that foot a little bit closer if I were you. Scoop forward, stand up. And we're going to do the half moon pose again, but this time without a hand on the floor. This is the unsupported version. So it's right fingertips to the ear, the right ear. Stretch the elbow to the ceiling, push the back hand to the back foot, and turn your tummy to the left side. You can stay there or you lean forward and you lift the left leg a little bit or higher. Okay, so this is one you could practice with the wall. From here, we're going to come into a little twist. All right, you can always have your toe on the floor here, where you bring your thigh to your chest. Relax, breathe in, and turn to the left side. That's easier. Harder, stretch into the heels of your hands, and you straighten the left leg. And we're going to try the crisscross stretch now. So it's left foot in front of the right, and squeeze your feet together, tuck your bottom down, sink into the left foot. Confusingly, it's on the right side, and twist to the left. We're going to swim to the floor. So I'm rolling my shoulders in, imagining I'm pushing the water away. Roll the shoulders out, push the water away. Now when you roll the shoulders in for the second time, imagine you're pushing the floor and the ceiling apart. So right palm to the ceiling, left palm to the floor. Keep pushing your bottom forward, and then imagine that you were trying to reach for something that was at 11 o'clock. Maybe it's a nice piece of Lindt chocolate or something. And reach over, hang out there, and only touch the floor if that feels okay for your body. Carefully come up, bring your fingers to touch, thigh to chest, foot to floor. And that should loosen you up and make you feel nice and warm. We'll do the other side. So just make sure you have a few breaths in the middle between sides if you need to. Elbows up, armpits down, relax. Feel as if you're pushing the air away with your hands. Scoop the arms forward, lift the collarbones, look up if you can. And then bring the backs of your hands together, fingers to the ceiling. Bring your fingers to the floor. Bend the knees as much as you need to. Half moon pose. This time we're going to balance on the left foot. So you're bringing your right heel to your right bottom. That's easy. Harder, right leg out behind you. A little bit harder, right hand on your hip. And the full pose, turn your tummy to the right and stretch gently into your right palm. And again, I'm gripping the mat with my left foot, a little bit of softness behind the left knee. To do the add-on, roll the right shoulder in, so internal rotation. Wrap the right arm around and briefly, maybe bending your left leg a little bit more, touch your earlobe, your left earlobe with your left fingertips. Hands back on the floor. Now roll your right thigh in, buttocks level, deep lunge, right foot back. So you're pushing into the ball of the back foot, scooping the right sitting bone forward, engaging this right glute, okay? When you sink down, imagine you're trying to stop yourself doing the splits, and each thigh is going to roll in a different direction. So the front thigh is rolling to the right and the back thigh is rolling to the left. It's like squeezing water out of a cloth, okay? Lastly, you imagine you're squeezing your feet together, and then when you drop the back knee to the floor, everything feels a bit easier. Be on the top of the back foot if you can. Squeeze the foot to the front, relax, side stretching. So start by bringing your right arm all the way forward and taking your arm over to the left. Imagine that you're going to connect your right armpit with your right ear. And in this pose, you should feel the connection between your fingertips and your hip flexor. Relax. This is harder, be careful. Little toe side of your left foot, front ribs are in, and you work on bringing your chest towards the floor. Come up, fancy beach pose. Be on the ball of your back foot, lift the back leg, sink your right hand to the right side, lift up the front of your left foot and pivot your belly button to the left side. Push your bum forward, rest your left hand on your right leg and look glamorously over your right shoulder. That's an important part of the pose. Come back to the first position. Be on the ball of your back foot. Lift the back leg. You might want to bring it a bit closer. Tuck forward to stand up. And we're going to do the half moon pose without the hand on the floor. So right hand back, left elbow to the ceiling. You can stay or you lean forward and try a balance. That's a mini balance. That's a harder balance, which I can't do. Okay, so you're trying to get your leg parallel with the floor. And then the twist. You can always pop your toe on the floor, or you bring your thigh to your chest and twist to the right side. That's a little bit easier. That's harder. Straightening the right leg is harder. And then a crisscross. Right foot in front of the left. So you can see I'm going to sink into that foot, squeeze the feet together, and turn from the tummy, this time to the right side. Swim to the floor. You're rolling your shoulders in. It's like pushing away water. Roll the shoulders out. And when you roll them in again, imagine you're pushing the ceiling and the floor away from each other. Keep tucking your bottom forward. Keep sinking into the right foot. And then imagine there's something that you want at 1 o'clock. See if you can reach for it. That's a great stretch. But only touch the floor if everything feels okay. Carefully come out of the pose. Fingertips touch thigh to chest and foot to floor. Namaste.